Yeah, it's live.
Yeah, it looks like we're live, as far as I can tell anyway.
And so we're being recorded now.
Yeah, that's right. So anybody who happens to be joining will hear us chatting. They'll see the screen and the ticker, and I can see how many people are live in the upper left hand corner. Do you see the eyeball with the number next to it?
No, where's that at?
Upper left hand corner. I don't know that you can see it. I'm asking if you can. It's really obvious to me. So if it's not really obvious to you, then I'm thinking you can't see it.
I got a message here uploading recordings. Stay in the studio until your recordings are uploaded.
Yeah, because I've set it to make a local recording because just like with Zoom, the cloud recordings are okay, but they're not highest quality.
Gotcha.
Okay. Anyway, I can see when somebody's watching. I have a little counter that tells me. So yeah. So I'll just keep an eye on that as we count down.
So I'm joining from Covington.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a comment in here.
So when people get the recording, will they get this part of it, the first 10 minutes?
Probably.
That
I don't
might
know.
not be as interesting to them.
Yeah, well, this is what we call pre-show banter. You don't have to listen to it. You can just fast forward right on through this part.
Fast forward, people.
Okay, did you put a comment in saying excited to be here? Somebody did.
No.
Yep. Oh, here's Justin. He's here.
We're excited to have you here.
I mean, Julian. Sorry, not Justin. Julian. All right. We got some LinkedIn user who's excited to be here. Nice. Thank you. Welcome. So I'm here, and today I'm in my home office near Seattle. This is Kip Boyle. We'll show ourselves in a few minutes. Marivelle, hi! Thanks so much for popping in. I really appreciate it. Lisa Shaw's here. Lisa's a member of my team. We'll do introductions once we get going. Julian, yeah, Philly. Okay, so we were just in Philly doing training a couple of months ago. So that was fun.
Did you happen to be at Secure World, Philly?
Julian, did you get to Secure World? All right, everybody. This is our first live stream ever.
Yeah. We've practiced. So we might have to ask for grace, but we're hoping not to.
Oh, there's Casey. Hey, man. Thanks for joining the live stream. Really appreciate it. I've been enjoying our talk, right? Our back and forth on LinkedIn. It's good to have you here. Okay, John from Houston. We just taught in Houston, right? Didn't Rob go to Houston, Lisa, and
Rob
teach
went to Houston. He taught the implementing the NIST Cybersecurity Framework Plus course in Houston.
Yeah, we get around. We
do some traveling.
All right, Kansas, wonderful.
Well, yeah.
And I, you know what? Here's where I have to admit that I sometimes struggle with names. So is it Mohith? I hope that's right. I'll get better. Oh, Robert is Denton, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where. I'm trying to place Denton on the map? I'm not sure. But thanks, Robert, for being here.
We've had some students from Denton at one of the plus courses.
Oh, maybe it's close to Dallas or Houston, because those are the two Texas cities we tend to.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. All right, it's almost go time.
Yeah, and we're going to start pretty much on time.
Yes, we are. So let's get the countdown going. Here we go. It's amazing what you can do with this software. I feel like I own an entire television studio. Oh, wow. Hey, everybody. Hi, this is Kip Boyle. It's great to have you here. This is our first live stream. So I don't know, like, is this going to work? Is it going to blow up? Hard to say, but I'm glad you're here because you're going to find out. And if you're watching the replay, well, you'll find out too, I suppose. Maybe we'll blow up so badly that's why you're watching the replay. I'm not sure. Anyway, thanks for being here. Lisa Shaw is here also. Hey, Lisa.
Hello.
I'm so glad you're here with me because the idea of me doing this by myself kind of was a little uncomfortable. So I thought maybe Lisa will help me. So I really, really appreciate it. So Lisa's our executive director here at Cyber Risk Opportunities. And Lisa, do you just want to give like a quick thumbnail sketch of what your role is?
Yeah, my role, I always say we're small but mighty. So my role could be anything the team needs help with. But my two main roles is customer service and sales. And so that doesn't really have anything to do with being here. But
no?
You needed a hand. You needed somebody to keep an eye on the questions, right? And
yes,
the questions get answered. So
that's right.
I hope people will ask questions because chances are if someone is wondering about something, then someone else is too. So then
absolutely.
everybody gets to benefit from your questions.
Yeah, please put your questions in the chat. I want to take your questions. I have like 4 different places in our time together today where I'm going to take questions. So as soon as you think of a question, just drop it in chat. Lisa's going to keep an eye on it, and and we'll get to as many as we can. Now, again, I just got my StreamYard license, so everybody watch out. And if I do something silly, Lisa's going to keep me honest. So anyway, that's great. So let's see. We have a lot of comments going on right now. We've actually had several people join us during what I was calling the pre-show banter. Erica, hey, thanks for popping in. Erica's got a couple of really awesome books on the topics of business continuity and disaster recovery that I read, and she's been a guest on my podcast more than once. So it's really nice. Yeah, so it's great to have you here, Erica. Thank you so much. Let's see. Oh, somebody from Oregon. Thank you for popping in. Really appreciate you joining us today. We've got people from all over the country who have joined us. So thank you so much. Okay, so let's get to it. What we're going to do today is I'm going to demo for you how we do something called a fast track business impact analysis, business continuity plan, and disaster recovery plan. And that's all based on the NIST CSF recover function, right? And yes, we do it as one kind of single deliverable, one workflow. And so when we're done, I'm going to share all the templates with you if you want them. So all you have to do is send an email to Lisa Shaw, and she'll be glad to provide you with the templates. And I hope you make great use of them. But you don't know what they look like yet, so I got to temper my enthusiasm. I don't know if you're going to want them, but we'll see. Now, if you like the templates, once you get them, I've done my best to make it so that you can turn the gaps that you discover in your recover function into an easy to understand cyber risk management action plan for yourself. And that means that when you do this work, you're going to be able to go to your decision makers and you're going to say, hey, I did this work. I found out we've got some gaps with respect to business continuity, disaster recovery, and here's my plan for dealing with them. And if you do this well, then there should not be a long, drawn out debate about whether there's enough business value to justify doing this work. You should just get a straightforward yes, or maybe a straightforward no. This isn't the right time. I'm not sure, but I've designed this so you can get buy-in. All right, because buy-in is so crucial. Now, along the way, as I demo these templates and this workflow, we're going to take a look at how a $100 million manufacturer that we worked with got their plan funded after they went through this sprint with us. All right. So it's kind of like, I've tried to value pack this as much as I possibly could. But if there's anything that could be better, if you have any questions along the way, I absolutely want to hear from you. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and get started with our first segment here. So look at Kip struggling to turn on all the stuff. Okay, I think I got it set up the way I was hoping that I would be able to get it set up. All right, so look, I want to tell you a story because stories are super, super important when it comes to convincing people that there's a problem and that something ought to be done about it. So I want to share this story with you, and and you should feel free to use this story as well as everything else that I'm sharing with you today, so that you can help your organization be ready for when something awful happens. Okay, all right. So now, United Structures of America. What a fascinating thing that happened to them. It's tragic, really, but it's also at the same time fascinating. We don't often get to learn about what various companies go through when they have a huge cyber attack. And the bigger ones we tend to learn about because those hit headlines all over the place, right? But this is a $100 million roughly company that unfortunately based in Texas, and they don't exist anymore because they were the victim of ransomware attacks. But the CEO of United Structures of America was incredibly transparent, and he gave an interview with a reporter from the Wall Street Journal and shared what it was like for him as the CEO to go through this ransomware attack, which ultimately bankrupted his company. So I just want to give you some highlights here, okay? So his name was Dane Drake, and I'm pretty sure if you Google search his name, you'll find some of this, right? But as he was giving the interview, like these were some of the things that really popped out to me, right? He said at first he was optimistic because why? Because he had funded a data backup system, and he thought that it was installed, and so like that was their get out of jail free card. Unfortunately, that didn't end up being the case. As you can see here, he ended up realizing as they tried to do data restorations that they couldn't, and that the system that they had paid good money for wasn't able to function the right way. Now, he didn't get into the details about why it didn't work, but what he said was, one of my many lessons is you got to test this stuff, right? You've got to make sure that when you need it, these various systems are going to function as intended, as they should. And I think this is so powerful. So here is the president, CEO of a company sharing, something that I think all of us probably know this. Everybody who's tuned in, you all probably know this, right? But to hear a president of a company say it is really powerful. And I want you to share this with your decision makers if you need to. Now, all their critical data was wiped out. Awful. And all the employees were laid off in late 2019. So they had about 450 employees. And And so they all had to go home and tell their families and the people that they loved that they didn't have a job anymore, not because of anything they had done, and really, not for probably the reason that anybody would ever expect, right? I don't have a job now because cyber attackers destroyed our business, right? Isn't that awful? I mean, we think it is. So 450 jobs lost. When I first read about United Structures of America, I went out to Google Maps and I actually did the screen grab because this is a very powerful thing to show people, I think. Now, it also turns out that during the bankruptcy proceedings, United Structures disclosed a tremendous amount of additional information in their bankruptcy filing. So and that's public, so you can go and retrieve that. And I really encourage you to get in there and read about them and think about how could I tell this story to my senior decision makers to get the buy-in that I need. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. Okay, so let's see. What I want to do now is I want to transition to the first part. So I want to share three things with you today. The first thing is I want to just quickly cover why the recover function in the NIST cybersecurity framework, why it matters, and what's in there, and what do we need to be paying attention to. All right. And then the second thing I want to do is actually go through the business impact analysis. And then the third thing is I want to actually use the information from the business impact analysis and show you how to use that information to build your minimum viable business continuity and disaster recovery plans. So, and where all this information I'm going to share with you today, where does it come from? Well, it comes from the work that we do with our customers. So this is real information. It's sanitized. So, so I feel comfortable sharing it with you, but it is live data. So, so I hope that you'll find this to be insightful, and you might even recognize yourselves in some of the things that I'm going to share with you. And we take a minimum viable approach with our customers, which is we're just saying, what's the least we can do and still move the needle, right? How can we create a lot of business value and, and get stuff done, right? And you're going to see that this approach is definitely minimum viable. If you've ever seen a business continuity disaster recovery plan that's been like in a thick binder that nobody ever touches, or it's been a multi-megabyte PowerPoint presentation living somewhere on your SharePoint infrastructure that nobody ever looks at, well, that's when BCDR plans go wrong. And we want to avoid that. Okay. So I'm a practitioner who teaches. That's who we are at Cyber Risk Opportunities. And so that's why we want to share this with you today. We'd like everybody to get better in the process. Now, before we dive into this, I'm really interested to ask this question. Okay, do you have a documented business impact analysis today? Could you go get one for your organization? So just in the chat right now, just give me a simple yes or a no, or the ever elusive it's in progress. All right, just go ahead and drop that in the chat right now. I'm super interested. Oh, we got somebody from Manchester in the United Kingdom. I have visited there actually. Oh, that was cool.
Hey, Kip.
Yeah.
Well, people are answering that question. I wonder if you could explain more about minimum viable, because honestly, the first time I heard it, it sounded like barely alive.
Oh, that's great.
Like, oh my gosh, that doesn't sound like enough.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, again, minimum viable. The reason why we focus on that is because during the course of my career, I would have non-technical, non-cybersecurity people come to me and say, hey, Kip, we need to do this cybersecurity thing, but hey, please don't go off and build me a Cadillac solution, right? I just want a Honda solution, a Toyota solution, right? And so that's what they were trying to say to me. It's like, look, we don't want to overspend on this, right? We want to just like spend just the right amount for us. And so but that's not easy to say, right? So I was like, how can I describe to people that we're going to build them a Honda solution and not a Cadillac solution, or whatever high-end car you like, right? And so minimum viable, well, I just blatantly stole that from the startup community, because they talk about minimum viable solutions and minimum viable products all the time. And I just thought that really captured the essence of the idea really well.
I like how it serves our customers because it protects their budget.
That's right. Yeah, we're being good stewards of their resources. We're helping them do the same thing. I love it. Okay, so what do we got here? We got Salen says yes. Oh, we got a lot of people who have business impact analysis documented. I think that's great. Michael, awesome. Julian, a qualitative BIA only. I'm working on the quantitative one. Nice. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so what I want to do now is let's go ahead and get into the recover function. Now, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, version 2, right? So that's what we are referring to today. There are 6 functions, right? Version 1 and 1.1 had 5 functions. It's that govern function, that ring in the middle. That's the new one. And we've got the 5 legacy functions all the way around the outside. And so look at the green one, kind of at the 11 o'clock position, right on the clock dial. That's what we're looking at, is the recover function. Now, of course, in the total NIST cybersecurity framework, we've got 22 activities under each in total under these 6 functions and 106 outcomes. I don't have time to unpack all that, but maybe we can do that in a future live stream. So we're looking at recover, and it goes by the code RC. So this is the definition of recover. All right. It's about restoration. So it's not a big, difficult thing to understand. Some parts of the NIST cybersecurity framework are pretty cryptic, to be honest with you, but this one's actually not. Now, there's 2 activities in this function, right? So there's a function at the high level, the first level, and then there's 2 activities at the second level. And we're going to be focusing on the recovery plan execution activity. We're not really going to talk about the communication activity, okay? But I just want to point out that while you're busy trying to make sure that the business can continue to operate and to restore it so that it's back into its correct working situation, somebody does need to tell stakeholders what's going on. So I hope that you're going to consider that in your plans. Now, here's the formal definition in the framework right here on the screen. And I refer to this as ciphertext because it's kind of bureaucratic and kind of stiff and formal. But this is how I think of it, right? How quickly can you return to normal operations? And I think that this resilience, right, is a perfectly fine word that you can use in here. How resilient are you? Now, the recovery communication one, again, this is the formal definition of it. But when we boil it out, it just really is like, what are you telling people, right? You've got insiders, members of your workforce, you've got outsiders, right? And maybe you need to communicate with them a little differently. So I hope that you're talking to your public relations function, whoever's in charge of communication. Okay. Now you might be saying, well, hey, Kip, what about that respond function? Is that in all of this? And no, we're not going to deal with respond today, because that's about containing an incident. All right. And so I don't want to talk about that today. I just want to talk about just the recover bit. All right. Okay, cool. So that's why recover matters. And I want to know if this is resonating with you. So if it is, just put recover in the chat. All right. And if you have a question about anything that I just covered, minimum viable or anything in recover, put that in the chat as well, because I'd love to take your questions now if you have them.
Kip, I'm not seeing any questions yet.
Okay. Well, if they come in, just, keep track of them for me, would you?
But I always have questions.
And you have good ones. So give me your question.
Well, I just am wondering how often, do we see assumptions made, just like the assumption made, by the example you gave in the beginning, that they had backups that worked. How often do we see assumptions that when we dig in deeper, they're just not happening? And
Right.
one I'm thinking about is MFA.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That comes up all the time. All the time. We talk to a senior decision maker. It could be the director of IT, or it could be the CFO, whomever. And a lot of times they're under the impression that, yeah, we got backups, that's covered. Everybody's got MFA turned on, that's covered. And then we dig in and we find out, yeah, not so much. So unfortunately, it's really common. And why is that? Well, I think it's due to a lot of things, but maybe the top couple of reasons is, first of all, um, we all have so much to do, right? And so once we get a backup data system in place and it looks like it's spinning and doing its job, we kind of just want to go on to the next thing and get that done. So I think that happens a lot. I think things get lost in translation. Either we checked a box to make MFA mandatory, but we really didn't understand what that meant, and so it wasn't mandatory, and we didn't go back around to make sure that it's doing exactly what we want it to do. Or maybe the way we told our senior decision makers that it's all set up, and they just didn't hear us clearly, and maybe they made an assumption. But yeah, happens all the time.
Kip, we do have a comment by a LinkedIn user
Oh,
that
great.
audits test assumptions.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Now, if you're in a mid-sized company, you don't have probably any internal auditors to help you out with that, right? If you're a bigger company, you probably do. Um, Now, and do you have outside auditors coming in, sort of testing some of these assumptions? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But yes, if you have really big assumptions in place, you really need to go and check on them, because maybe it was true at some point, but now it's not, because things change all the time. Okay, let's keep going, because I want to respect your time, and we have limited time. I'm used to having like hours to spend on stuff like this. Okay, not that one. Here we go. So here's the second thing I want to talk about. The way that we find works really, really well when we're doing a very basic business impact analysis is to focus on the four core processes that every organization does. All right. Now, I'm gonna step through these here really quickly, and then we're gonna use. I'm gonna show you how we use them in order to do the business impact analysis. But the names of these processes may not be the same for your organization. They may have a different name, especially if you work at a not-for-profit or if you work at a government agency. You might see things look very different. But I'm pretty sure that if you look closely enough, you're going to find all this stuff. Okay, and here they are: order to cash, purchase to pay, hire to retire, and record to report. All right, now let's take a look at each one in turn. This is a very simple uh, visual depiction of order to cash. And all we're talking about is, what are the steps that are necessary from the time that somebody places an order with us, whatever it is that we need, whatever it is that we're selling, whatever it is that we're doing. If we're a mission driven organization and somebody comes to us and says we need help, right? That's a customer or client. And then all the way through the end where we actually get paid for what we did. And if it's not the customer paying, if there's another payer in there, like an insurance company or government agency grant or something like that, sooner or later cash has to show up, right? Now, here's the deal. If you get into this business process and you start understanding how this works, I guarantee you're going to find some of the most important assets that your organization has, and you're going to end up talking to some of the most important and influential people in that organization, because not just anybody is entrusted with these functions, right? Only the most trusted people get to be in charge of these functions. Now, here's purchase to pay, which is kind of the blue box across the top. And I understand that this is a huge eye chart here. Okay, there's a lot going on, but I'm going to send these to you if you want these slides. Every slide I'm showing you today, I'll share them with you. You just have to send Lisa the email, and no problem. Now, look, if you look across the top, it's another depiction of the purchase to pay uh, 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 process. And then you can see order to cash down below. And here what you're seeing is there's a buyer. Um, at the top, right? And then there's a supplier at the bottom. So here you're kind of really looking at how two organizations work together to to place orders and to fulfill orders, right? So this is kind of a B2B version of this. And again, if you go through it and you just drill in a little bit, you're going to start to discover all the really truly important assets that your organization has. Now let's look at the third one. This is the hire to retire process. And you can see I borrowed this from SAP. This is something that they published in their marketing materials in order to show how SAP can provide a solution for running this process for you. Again, if you get in here and you look at it, right, you're going to see that, oh, okay, when we onboard people, there's all this paperwork that we take in. We set them up in payroll, and so on and so forth. We collect information and turn on their health benefits, right? And we've got timesheets and so on and so forth, right? We pay people using our payroll system. Now, all of these become targets, don't they, for cyber exploitation, right? And also, if any of these things stop functioning, that causes business discontinuity, right? That can cause problems. So it's really important. Now, here's the last one. This is record to report. And this visual here is a little different because what you're seeing is a level 0 across the top, which is sort of like the rolled up summary of how transactions get recorded and how they move through a process, starting on the left and going to the right, and ultimately get reported. And if you're a publicly traded company, those reports are probably under the control of the Sarbanes-Oxley requirements, right? Now, if you go down the diagram into that level 1 space, now what you're seeing is the sub processes for each one of the major boxes up top, right? And I think this is really cool. I think this is super helpful when you're trying to identify assets in the organization. And that's why we like to use it for our business impact analysis as the basis for business impact analysis. So, right. So that's what I wanted to show you there. And if we had time, I would love to continue to go through it, but we got to move on. So Lisa, are there any questions?
No questions, Kip, but I'm going to ask a favor. We have a snag. So I am not able to list my email, type my email into the chat. Are you able to type my email into the chat?
Yes,
We have some requests for that.
I will totally do that.
And during the practice, my email showed up in my box floating around, and it's so.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but yeah, we'll take care of it, and we'll fix this for later as well. So I'm about to put Lisa's email address into the chat for y'all, and it's long, so you're definitely gonna want to copy it, right?
I know. Could it be any longer?
Oh yeah.
No, I don't. Maybe.
I could have put your last name in there too. Anyway. So there you go. I hope everybody can see it. I just put it in there. Can you see it?
I can see it. Thanks, Kip.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So let's go on to the next segment here, which is what everybody really came for, which is the business impact analysis. Okay, so now here is the business impact analysis template that we use, and this is not the one that I'm going to use to explain how to do this, but it's kind of the big picture. I want you to see the big picture here, okay? So you can see at the top it says please insert answers in column 2, and we've got the placeholders there. And so what we're seeing here is, right, sales, order fulfillment, accounts receivable, and accounts payable, right? Those are the things that we want to focus on. And for each one of those, we're going to answer just 4 simple questions. What's the most critical system name inside your sales process? We're just focusing on one. You probably have more than one. But at this stage of the game, especially if you don't have any business continuity plans, you don't have any disaster recovery plans, don't get too ambitious here, okay? Just focus on the most important one. And then we're going to do the same thing as we go down through order fulfillment, accounts receivable, and accounts payable. Now, the number one most likely major disruption, and I'll show you some examples in a moment, but that's what you want to put there. And again, minimum viable, you want to pick one, just one. Don't overwhelm yourself, okay? Your recovery time objective and your recovery point objective. Now, recovery time objective gets to how long can this thing be out of service before the wheels come flying off of our organization. That's the way I think about it. There's probably other perfectly valid ways to think about it. And the recovery point objective is really answering the question, how much data can we afford to lose? Right. And depending on the volume and the types of transactions, you might say, well, we can't lose more than 30 minutes of transactions, or maybe a day of transactions, or maybe you can actually say, we can't lose more than 100 transactions. However you quantify it, that's what we want to put into that spot. Okay. All right. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at a real example. And here it is right here. So this, again, comes from a real company that we worked with, all right? So for their sales process, they actually had two systems that they wanted to put into scope. And even though I told them just do one, they're like, no, we got to do two because these two things like together are super important to us. I said, all right. So their order page is on their homepage of their website, acme.com in this case, right? But then when after orders are placed, they get sent by data transfer to HubSpot because that's the system that they chose. And so we asked the question, what's the most likely disruption? And for acme.com, it was a network service outage, right? And they knew their systems and they could think about the history and they could say, yeah, this is what causes the most trouble for us. And then for HubSpot, it was like, well, what if HubSpot, just goes down as a service? Excuse me. Or what if we have some sort of cloud related outage, right? That was kind of what they were thinking. Now, the most time that they could have their sales process offline was 1 hour. Beyond that, the costs starting to get enormous, and they said zero data loss. Like, we don't want to lose even a single order. Great. Okay, there you go. So now I know what to do there. For order fulfillment, this is like getting the things that people pay for into the hands of the people who bought them. And for Acme, they had a mobile app that dispatched their drivers to send or to deliver what people had ordered. And so their mobile app was working fine. It was the SMS messaging component of their mobile app that had been flaky. And so we put that down. And you can see that that they said that, hey, if this thing's down for more than 4 hours, that's a major problem. We can't deal with any more than 4 hours. And they couldn't afford to lose more than 1 day of delivery messages. All right. So I hope that makes that clear. Now for accounts receivable, right? So this is like money that people owe us. How do we get that money? And again, they chose two systems. So their general ledger, that's what GL means, is kept in a system called NetSuite. And that's, as you can see, because it's got the .com there, that's a cloud system. And they use Stripe in order to receive payments. In both cases, they were saying some sort of a service outage is probably, what is the most likely disruption. And you can see here that in both cases, they said, we can't be offline more than a day, and we can't afford to lose any data at all, right? And these are some pretty high requirements, I think. Now, the final area is accounts payable. And again, they focused on NetSuite because that's where the requisitions and the purchase orders live. And why is that important? Because that tells them who they owe money to, right? Their suppliers, for example, where they get their raw materials because they're a manufacturer. And you can see here that that if this system's out for more than 2 days, that's a problem, and they can't afford to lose any data at all. So there you go. That's the business impact analysis. And we were able to do this very, very quickly. I think we were able to do it within inside of 90-minute conversation with the controller and a member of the IT staff. We were able to get this all dialed in. So does that surprise anybody how quickly we were able to get this done? I would love to know if anybody finds this surprising, or if there's anything about this process that you want to ask a question about, or if you have any concerns about how we did this, the fact that it's minimum viable, the fact that it's not very fancy, right? This is not a very pretty sort of template. It doesn't have fancy graphics on it or anything like that. It's not a SaaS, right? It's not a web form. It's just us sitting, with somebody else and saying, here's some really important data we need if we're going to, help you with this. Okay. Lisa, what are you seeing in chat while I take a sip of tea?
Well, we tried to fix our glitch, and we just managed to have another glitch.
Oh, what's the new glitch? Isn't this fun? Yay, live streams, always a good fun time.
So the guests cannot see my email, so it must be in a private chat just between you and me. Are you able to put it in the comments section?
Okay, so let's take a look here. Okay, so what I can see is it says I can post now. This is kind of surprising. Sorry, everybody, but this is what you learn when you try things. It looks like I can actually post comments to YouTube because we're simulcasting to YouTube, but I cannot put comments into LinkedIn. I
Oh,
don't know why, but
well,
that's
you know what?
probably why.
On the screen that you were sharing before, it did show. I know a
How about
couple
that?
emails came in with requests, so let me just say verbally, oh, there it is up on the screen.
Yep. So I've got you on the screen now, and I
Lisa
hope everybody can
has.
see Lisa's email address. So go ahead and do a screen capture, or maybe take a photograph of your screen, however you want to do it. I'll just leave this up for a little bit so you
Yeah.
can capture it. Right.
Okay,
What else, Lisa?
well, folks are doing that. I remember that work, and you and I were both on the call with our
Mhm.
customer, and I was surprised at how much kind of came to light
Mm.
through
What
that process.
what
Like,
stood out? What stood out to you?
well, the big thing was their capabilities for getting back up didn't match what they said, the times that they wanted to meet. They
Right.
wanted no more than like 2 hours of downtime, and they ended up, I think they ended up having like a day, like 24 hours.
Yeah, with their support contract, I think is what you're thinking about, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, there was a big mismatch between like how fast they needed support from their vendor in the case of something bad happening, but they didn't buy a level of support that would give them the responsiveness that they needed. And so just by doing this little exercise, we were immediately able to find that out.
Mhm.
Yep. So we could have stopped right there and they would have been better off. Okay. Oh, somebody from LinkedIn shared Lisa's email. Thank you so much. That's so helpful. I really appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we got Julian says the time to create a process list is what was time consuming for me. After that, how did you know who to talk to about each process and how did you determine RTO and RPO? Awesome question, Julian. Thank you very much. So, yeah. Now here's the thing. We grabbed onto these four processes because we wanted something that could be repeatable, right? Now, for you, it just becomes a bookmark, a placeholder for like where do I begin, right? It's a starting point. So, so what I would recommend you do is first of all discover, order to cash. What is our process called? Because not everybody calls their processes the same things. And maybe you need to go chat with the folks in finance, right? And if you don't know anybody in finance, then it's time to go make a friend. Okay. Now back in the old days when people worked in physical spaces together, and some of you probably do, but others of you probably don't. I could just go pop into the finance work group, and I could say, "Hi, I'm confused about finance. Will anybody help me?" And maybe I'd bring over a slice of pizza and a soda, to kind of warm up the conversation. So, but that's how I did it. And maybe my boss would know a thing or two. Maybe my boss would say, "Oh, you need to talk to Steve." So I'll do an email introduction, or maybe he'd pick up the phone and say, "Steve, you have a moment to talk to Kip? He's got some questions." So so there's no like obvious answer here. So Julian, I'm not surprised that it took you a while, but I got to tell you, like this is so worth doing. And then determining RTO and RPO. Okay, look, here's the thing. Nobody ever knows what their RTO and RPO are, right? First of all, they don't even understand what those acronyms are. So don't use those acronyms when you go talk to people who don't work in IT or don't work in cybersecurity because they'll have no idea what you're talking about. Try to say it the way I said it. Ask them like, how long if this system went down, how long would it take for people to lose their minds? And there's your RTO, right? Just try to keep it as simple as possible when you're talking to folks. Okay. So I hope that helps. Okay. Is there anything else going on in the chat?
Yeah, we have, I'm not sure if it's a comment or question, but a LinkedIn user is saying the next decision for stakeholders is to make risk-based decisions. For example, if the data is only worth $1,000 a day, then it doesn't make economical sense to spend $5,000 on the mitigation.
Absolutely correct. Yes. Thank you, LinkedIn user, mysterious person, whoever you are. I don't know if that's a StreamYard limitation, why we can't, see, your name as it is on LinkedIn and your photo. That's something I'll have to dig into, but I love that. Now, one way that I say it when I'm talking about this is I say, you don't want to spend $1,000 on a fence to protect a $500 horse, right? And there's other ways that you can say it, right? You can use car examples, whatever. But I think this is absolutely correct. Okay, here's Aaron. Now, Aaron's watching by the YouTube stream, and Aaron's like, "What is the next step in that the BIA will feed into?" And that's exactly where we're going next. So let me go ahead and put that up. There we go. Let's see. Or is that the one? Wait a minute. Okay, so this is the one. Here we go. Okay. So this is the plan, the business continuity and the disaster recovery plan that we built based on the simple business impact analysis that we did. Okay, and there's 11 pages, and I've reformatted this so it's a little easier to read here in the live stream. But when you send Lisa the email for the templates, and by the way, if you're watching this on the replay, send us the email. Send Lisa the email. We're happy to give you the templates. Even if you're not watching live, it's no problem. But I reformatted this so it's easier to read. Okay, so let's take a look here. So I restate the business impact analysis in this document, and we don't have to look at it again. We've already seen that. Okay, here we go. Order fulfillment. Now, we said that short message service SMS delivery failures is the most likely issue, right? So then what we just documented was that our current system quickly detects any undelivered messages and then resends them immediately via another SMS delivery vendor that we have on hot standby. However, this is not an acceptable long-term solution. So here we've captured a business continuity solution that's already in place, which is great because now we can take credit for the fact that we've already done something. But we've also discovered that this is not considered to be an acceptable long-term solution. And so over the next 12 months, we need to implement multiple new SMS aggregators who have highly consistent delivery performance. Now, think about that. That's a big piece of work. And somebody's got to get money for that, budget approved for that, right? Think about what happens if this is not a funded project, but you take this information to the CFO and you say, hey, I did this analysis, and when I was talking to the folks over in IT about this type of failure that we might experience, they already know about it, but we need to get it funded, and let me explain to you why. I think that's very powerful. And the work that you did here is you simply went and you gathered and aggregated this information. And don't undersell how important that is, because it's super important. The fact that you can gather it and that you can escalate it to a decision maker and explain it in a way that they can understand is incredibly powerful. And you can see down here on the accounts payable process for business continuity. Well, if we did have a cloud service outage, they said, hey, it's never happened, but if we did do it, we'd engage in standard troubleshooting. And if it's not under our control, we would check the NetSuite downtime status page. And we'd also contact customer support. But ultimately, we've got to wait for NetSuite to come back. Like, there's nothing we can do if all the troubleshooting indicates that we have no control. And so that led to this question, or these two questions. Should we do a backup, our own backup of the data that we have in NetSuite? And do we buy cyber insurance to cover the losses that we would, that we would suffer if this cloud provider went down? Now, some people might say, well, the cloud provider, should pay for this, but they're not going to. I don't know how many of you have actually read the terms of service of standard cloud solutions, but the most you're going to get is like maybe 1 or 2 months credit for whatever it is that you paid. So that's in no way is that going to cover, the loss that you're going to experience if this happens. All right. So let's take a look here. HubSpot. Very similar situation, right? It's a cloud provider. A cloud outage is probably what's going to cause the trouble. We would do the very same things that we would do for NetSuite. So should we back up our data out of HubSpot, and should we buy cyber insurance? And you can see this is over and over and over and over again, right? It's coming up for NetSuite, for Stripe, for HubSpot. And because they use NetSuite in so many different locations, the need for it is popping up multiple times as well. If you aggregate this data and go to the CFO and say, oh my gosh, a NetSuite outage isn't just going to mess up our ability to pay people we owe money to, it's also going to mess up our ability to get money that people owe to us, right? And also, all these other things that we're relying on NetSuite as a crucial part of what makes our organization function, right? This is such important information that you're able to bring back together. Okay, so that's the business continuity. Yeah, this is the business continuity plan. All right, so this is just what keeps us in business. Now let's look at I went too far, the disaster recovery plan. Here we said for order fulfillment, right? We'd shift to a new SMS provider, and the new number setup takes 3 to 5 days to do this, violating our RTO. Here's another example where just by having the conversation with the people who were adminning these systems, we found out that a 3 to 5 day elapsed time to restore to a different SMS provider if we gave up on the one that went down, there's no way we could keep our RTO. And we already know this. It's just that not everybody knows it. So if we could take this information back to the CFO, that would be very powerful, wouldn't it? If we said, look, we know now that this is an issue, we need to do something about it. Same with accounts payable in NetSuite. Same with accounts receivable in NetSuite. Now, here's another example of if HubSpot goes out related to sales, and if HubSpot doesn't come back in 24 hours, we're going to have to migrate to a new cloud-based CRM. And we can do that with as little as 4 hours, but we can't do it any faster than that. And that also violates our RTO and RPO because we're going to have to abandon data in the old solution that we just gave up on. Again, this is not magical. Nobody had to do any serious analysis to figure this out. We just needed to go have the conversations and pull all the information together. Now, do you think that if you did this and you discovered these kinds of things, that you would be able to go and have a conversation with your CFO or your boss or whomever? Do you think that you'd get the buy-in, right? Do you feel like you'd be set up for that? If you do think so, I want you to type CFO into the chat, because I'm interested to see if this is really resonating.
Kip, with another customer that we were going through this with, something that scared me that the IT person said, they have a very small IT team, like one person. And they said,
very small at the time.
Yes, and they said they were talking about phishing, as a risk for one of these areas, and they said that people click on bad links all the time. They're constantly, stopping bad links.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what does that point to? That's probably not happening. Probably, they need to up their employee training activities. Yeah. Or maybe do something different. But we did have a couple comments.
Okay.
Okay, Kurt W says, oops, I find it challenging to even get internal business stakeholders to understand the value of identifying assets processes to begin a BIA/risk assessment.
Yeah. Well, Kurt, do you need permission? I don't know if you do. Maybe you do. I don't know. But if you don't need permission to do it because if they don't understand the value, but you're able to do it anyway, do it anyway. Because if you can bring back results like this, then I think they'll understand. They may not understand going into it, but if you can bring back information like this, then they'll be like, "Oh, I had no idea." So, so what's causing them to not buy in up front? Well, it could be lack of imagination on their part, right? It could be that this stuff is so abstract and theoretical to them that they just don't see the value, right? So maybe when you get these templates from us, because we're going to include all that data that I showed you, maybe you could go to them. You can say, hey, I went to this live stream, and look, I want to show you this example because this is what we could find out if we did this. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll find something different. But I think this is worth doing. So you might want to try that, Kurt.
And it really doesn't cost anything to do it. Gray money, a little employee time.
Right. Right. Oh, Erica, thank you so much. I really appreciate your comment. Now, Erica focuses on, again, business continuity, disaster recovery, kind of big picture. She wrote a book that I would really recommend that you get. And Erica, I want you to put the name of your second book in here. Your first book's awesome too, but I love the second book because it was written based on her experiences going through a flood event and what she saw after the flood waters receded and what kind of pain and agony people had to go through. And it's so instructive. And those are some good stories you can tell your senior decision makers as well.
Yeah, I'd encourage folks also to check out the Cyber Risk Management podcast. Erica has 2 very good episodes in the
That's right.
library.
Yep. And if you don't know where the Cyber Risk Management podcast is, just Google search those keywords and it'll come up. And because I can't put the URL into the chat, yeah, I'm not even going to try. So unfortunate. Oh, one of our anonymous LinkedIn users says fantastic material. Love it. I'm glad you find it to be useful.
Kip, do you see the question from Julian?
This one, right? A client question. How do we prepare for a major cloud provider outage like Azure, Google Cloud, AWS? Who supports the cloud apps we use? What a great existential question that is. Well, I think you saw as I went through the example that for some cloud providers, if they go offline and can't get themselves back online for whatever reason, you're pinched, right? So what we do at CRO is we have cloud providers we count on as well too, right? We've got Microsoft 365. We've got ClickUp, which is our task tracking system. We use DocuSign in order to do contracts. And so what we decided when we realized, like, gosh, if these sites go offline for any length of time, we'll kind of be dead in the water. So what we have done is we're actually backing up data out of these cloud providers and storing them on 2 completely different systems so that if one of these cloud providers went out and didn't come back anytime soon, we could root around in those data backups and find the data that we needed. That would not be fun. I don't want to do that, but it's better than sitting, in my home office and going, now I have to recreate data that I have no idea. I don't even know what I've lost, right? So this is a real problem for our modern cloud world that we live and work in. Thank you, Erica. That's the name of her book.
I never dreamed our guests would be so awesome. John just shared our podcast link.
Oh, thanks, John. I'll put that up there in just a moment. I really recommend Erica's book. Take a screen grab of this. Take a photo of it, whatever you need to do. You need to get this book. Very affordable, worth. You're going to get way more value out of it than the money you spend. And John, thank you so much. This is the link to our podcast, cr-map.com/podcast. So I want to tell you about the podcast. So Jake Bernstein's my co-host. He's a cybersecurity and privacy attorney, and we've done over 180 episodes now. Our first episode actually came out. I was telling Jake this the other day, that our first episode was in June of 2018. So I had to count on my fingers, but that's 8 years, right? 7 years? Somebody help me out. What's the math? It's a long time. We've been doing this a lot, and we've tried to make episodes that are evergreen. And what I mean by that is, like, you should be able to go into our back catalog 2 or 3 years ago, maybe more, and still find episodes that will be helpful today, because we're not a news of the day type podcast where information goes stale quickly. Okay. Central tenet of continuity is to avoid single points of failure. Yes, but that's really difficult, isn't it? In our cloud world, we just sort of assume that if it's in the cloud, it will never fail. Of course, we know that's not true. But it is really difficult to avoid single points of failure in this world. Okay. Salen, I think. I don't know. Unless the business has suffered losses previously, this would not make an immediate impact from my experience. That's entirely possible. I will not dispute that. I want to tell you a story, actually. So in my role, I meet new people all the time, and most of them are senior decision makers in organizations that are thinking, like, what do I need to do for cybersecurity? And as I talk to them, sometimes this feeling washes over me, and I'm like, wait a minute, this person thinks they're invulnerable. Yeah, I'm selling life insurance to Zeus here. Like, this person's never going to pay $1 to get help in this area because they don't think they need any help. Well, once I realize that, I shake their hand, I wish them well, and I leave, because that's a psychology I can't change. I don't have a magic wand. I have no idea how to help somebody see that they are actually as vulnerable as anybody who's using the internet today. So, now if you're working for somebody and the person that you're working for has that, like, nothing bad's ever going to happen to us here, I don't think you're going to be able to change their mind either, unless something really awful happens, and then they're going to want to never have that pain again. But in the meantime, what do you do? Well, you might need to go get a different job if you find that intolerable. If you're not willing to go through a painful exercise with them so they can finally learn for sure that they need to do something about it, I wouldn't encourage you to hang out there anymore. That's the sad truth. And I'm sorry if that, if that's unlikable. I could understand why you would feel that way, but there it is. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're out of time. So I hope you learned a lot. I hope that you're going to find this helpful. Send Lisa an email again if you want to get copies of all this material. We're happy to share it with you. There's Lisa's email address again if you hadn't gotten it already. And we're going to be back in 2 weeks. We're going to do another live stream. I thought this was fun. I can now say that I'm willing to do this again. And I thought I could show you a little bit more about the third level of detail in the NIST cybersecurity framework, like how to use those 106 outcomes to become more cyber resilient. But listen, if there's something else about the NIST CSF that you want to know about, go ahead and send me a note and tell me, like, what's the burning question you have about the framework, and I'll see if I can do a LinkedIn Live on that topic for you. If not next time, then maybe the time after that. So that's a wrap, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.